Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a topic that really holds some fundamental keys to personal and, well, interpersonal effectiveness.
Yeah, and this exploration is based entirely on this stack of sources you've provided us, drawing pretty heavily from excerpts of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
That's right. And it's not just presented as, a simple list of things to do.
No, definitely not. The material really invites you to look inward, understand yourself, and sort of explore your impact on others in, a really profound way.
So, our mission today is to unpack these sources, pull out the core concepts, those really striking insights, and get to the heart of what this all means for you. Whether you're maybe prepping for something specific or just, intensely curious about what makes people truly effective and fulfilled.
Think of it maybe as your shortcut to being well-informed on these ideas that have influenced millions. And hopefully you'll have a few surprising aha moments along the way, distilled right from the source material.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Right at the beginning, the sources draw a pretty sharp distinction. They suggest that, lasting success and healthy relationships, they aren't built on quick fix techniques or surface level personality tips and tricks.
Exactly. They talk about this fundamental difference between the character ethic and the personality ethic. The core argument is that real deep effectiveness is built on foundational principles and solid character rather than just mastering skills or adopting certain attitudes.
It reminds me of that farming analogy they use. I found that really powerful.
Oh, yeah?
You can't just cram all your work into the fall right before harvest and expect results if you didn't put in the consistent effort planting and tending in the spring and summer.
Right. They argue that human behavior, relationships, their natural systems, there's just no shortcut around consistent principle-based effort. You really do reap what you sow.
And that leads directly to this idea that what you are communicates far more powerfully than anything you say or do.
hmm Think about people you trust completely. It's often not because they're slick communicators or masters of technique, right? It's because they embody certain principles.
Yeah, there's an integrity there.
Exactly. The sources quote William George Jordan on this, talking about a silent, unconscious, unseen influence, which is simply the constant radiation of what man really is, not what he pretends to be. You just,
Yeah.
you feel that authenticity.
That resonates. You definitely know when someone's being real. But, okay, before we even get to the habits themselves, the sources really push you to understand something even more fundamental first. Paradigms.
Absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
The word itself, it comes from Greek, essentially meaning a model, a theory, or a perception. It's the lens through which we see and interpret the world around us.
And we all have these mental maps in our heads, right? The sources describe them as maps of how things are realities and maps of how things should be our values.
And we filter everything we experience through these maps, often completely unaware we're even doing it. We just assume our perspective is objective reality.
Yeah, that's the default.
And here's where it gets really interesting, especially with that classic picture demonstration the sources use.
Yeah.
You know the one where, depending on how you look, you see either a young woman or an old woman.
Oh, that image is brilliant. I've seen it, of course, but thinking about it in this context, it's different. It perfectly shows how two completely sincere, clear-headed people can look at the exact same visual input
The exact same data.
and interpret it totally differently based on their prior conditioning or, the context they were given.
Precisely. And our natural tendency, when others disagree with our perception, is to think something's wrong with them.
Right. Why can't you see it?
Exactly. But the demonstration shows they're likely just looking through the unique lens shaped by their own experience and assumptions, their paradigm.
So if our paradigms are these deeply ingrained filters trying to make significant changes by just working on attitudes and behaviors, well, it feels a bit futile, doesn't it? Like, as the sources put it, hacking at the leaves.
Yes, that's the argument. You might get minor adjustments, maybe, but for substantial, what they call quantum change, you have to get down to the root,
To the paradigm itself.
to your basic paradigms.
Yeah.
The sources are very clear. To change the situation fundamentally, you have to change yourself, and to change yourself, you have to change your paradigms.
And the most powerful, effective paradigm, according to this material, is principle-centered.
Right. And this isn't about subjective beliefs. It's based on the idea that just like there's gravity in the physical world, there are universal, unchanging, natural laws governing human effectiveness and relationships.
So our mental maps are subjective.
There's subjective reality, yeah. These principles are the objective reality, the territory, the lighthouse principles, they call them.
Okay.
The sources argue that the more our internal maps align with these external unchanging principles, the more accurate our understanding of reality becomes and, well, the more effective we are.
Okay, so building on that foundation principles, understanding paradigms, the sources then lay out this journey of growth. They call it the maturity continuum.
It's a progression from dependence through independence and finally to interdependence.
Dependent people, as they describe it, rely on others to get what they want. It's this outside-in paradigm
Right.
where they can feel victimized, maybe immobilized, often focused on other people's weaknesses or what circumstances are doing to them.
You see this in relationships where someone just wants the other person to change, or in conflicts focused on forcing external behavior, maybe like labor disputes.
Then independence is the next crucial step. This is about self-reliance, being inner-directed.
Your sense of worth and security comes from within, not based on whether you're liked or how others treat you. And the sources really emphasize this is a vital, liberating goal. It empowers you to act based on your values, rather than merely being acted upon by circumstances or other people.
But, and this is a really important point they make, while independence is essential, living purely as an independent thinker isn't fully effective in an interdependent reality.
And most of life is highly interdependent, isn't it?
It really is. Trying to be maximally effective purely through independence, they suggest, is like bringing a golf club to a tennis match. It's just the wrong tool for the reality you're in.
So, interdependence is presented as the most mature state. It means you are self-reliant and capable. That's the foundation built by independence.
You need that first.
You absolutely need it first. And you deeply recognize that working together, combining diverse talents and strengths, allows you to achieve far more than you could alone. Emotionally, you have self-worth, but you can give and receive love. Intellectually, you genuinely value and actually need others' best thinking.
And this struck me. The sources state that interdependence is a choice only independent people can truly make.
Yeah, that's key. Dependent people, they argue, don't own enough of themselves to choose interdependence. They lack the self-mastery to genuinely collaborate.
Which explains the structure of the habit.
Exactly. It's why the structure is so deliberate. The first 3 habits focus on self-mastery, on moving from dependence to independence. They call these the private victories.
Right.
And the sources are emphatic. Private victories must precede public victories, the habits of interdependence. You just can't skip the inner work and expect successful relationships or teamwork. It's fundamentally an inside-out process.
Speaking of effectiveness, the sources introduce this core concept for balancing things, the PPC balance.
This is such a simple yet profound analogy. True effectiveness balances production, P, with production capability, PC. The classic fable is the golden goose. P is the golden eggs, the desired results you get. And PC is the goose itself, the asset or the capacity to produce those results.
Okay, so if you only focus on P, just getting results, chasing the golden eggs, you neglect the PC, the goose.
Right. Eventually, the goose gets sick or dies,
Yeah.
and you lose the ability to produce long-term.
Makes sense.
Conversely, if you only focus on the PC, polishing the goose, investing in the asset but never produce any golden eggs, PO, well, you can't sustain yourself or the asset. Effectiveness, according to these sources, demands this continuous balance.
And they apply this across the board, don't they, financially?
Financially, your capacity to earn is a key asset, PC. If you don't continually invest in improving your skills, your knowledge, you limit your options. You might stay economically dependent.
And in relationships?
Same idea. Focusing only on getting benefits from a marriage, say the golden eggs, P, without nurturing the relationship itself, the goose, PC, well, that leads to insensitivity, maybe manipulation and deterioration.
Parenting provides a great example too, I thought. Wanting a clean room, P, is understandable.
Of course.
But if you achieve it by nagging and forcing, you neglect the child. The goose, the PC, you undermine their self-discipline and you harm the relationship.
Whereas building their PC, their self-management skills, maybe through approaches like stewardship delegation, that's what allows them to eventually clean their room cheerfully and take ownership.
Yeah, take that responsibility.
And in organizations, same thing. Running equipment constantly for production, P, without maintenance, PC, leaves behind a sick goose, destroys long-term profitability. Ignoring the human assets, employees, customer relationships does exactly the same thing.
That anecdote about the parent and the Star Wars movie really brings this home.
It does.
The parent wanted the P quality time with the daughter, But initially, he wasn't valuing her PC, her genuine interest and perspective on the movie,
He was getting the result he wanted, the time together.
but missing the deeper capacity for connection. The dynamic only changed when he shifted his paradigm, became her student, valued her perspective. That led to a much richer interaction, a different kind of production in their relationship.
It's about valuing the person or the asset behind the result. It's crucial.
Okay, so with that foundational understanding, principles, paradigms, the maturity continuum, PPC balance, let's dive into the habits themselves, starting with habit 1, be proactive.
Right. This is where the power really begins, because it's rooted in our fundamental human endowments: self-awareness, imagination, conscience, and independent will. These things make us uniquely human.
The sources use Viktor Frankl's incredible story from the Nazi death camps,
Mhm.
which is just harrowing and, well, inspiring at the same time.
It truly is. He found that even when everything external was controlled, his body, his environment, they couldn't take away the last of the human freedoms, his freedom to choose his response.
That space between stimulus and response.
Yes, exactly. That idea that between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies your power and freedom to choose your attitude, your perspective, your reaction.
And proactive people, the sources argue, live in that space. They're value-driven.
Whereas reactive people, on the other hand, are driven by feelings, by circumstances, by the social weather, how others treat them. They build their emotional lives on others' weaknesses.
And you can actually hear this in language, can't you?
You really can. Reactive language is often full of phrases that imply determinism. I have to, I can't, they make me feel this way.
Right.
The story about the student who felt he had to go on the tennis trip, but then realized he was choosing it because he wanted the consequence of staying on the team.
Mm-hmm.
That illustrates it perfectly.
So he owned the choice.
He owned the choice. Reactive language, the sources say, becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It keeps you feeling like a victim of outside forces.
So proactive people focus their energy where they have power, their
Yeah.
circle of influence.
Exactly. That's the circle containing things. They can actually do something about their own attitude, their behavior, how they prepare, their methods of influencing others, and even how they choose to see problems they can't directly control.
And the circle of concern is everything else.
Pretty much. Other people's flaws, the economy, the weather, past mistakes, things you worry about but can't control.
And focusing proactively within your circle of influence, the sources note, actually causes it to grow.
It does. The example of the executive working for that dictatorial boss shows this. By focusing on his own contribution and how he responded, he grew his influence over time until his perspective was sought out and respected. He changed his part of the equation.
Past mistakes are a great example of things squarely in the circle of concern, aren't they? You can't change what happened.
Nope, can't undo them. But proactivity regarding a mistake means focusing on what is in your control now. What did you learn? That's knowledge. How will you handle similar situations in the future? That's skill. And your desire to improve, that's where the control lies.
So building proactivity isn't just for big crises. It happens in the little everyday things.
Absolutely. How you respond to a traffic jam, how you handle a rude email, how you keep a small promise to yourself. It's built in those moments. That's where the muscle really develops.
Okay, that leads us naturally to habit 2. Begin with the end in mind.
Right. This is about the mental or first creation. The idea is that everything is created twice. First mentally, then physically. This habit draws heavily on imagination, our ability to envision potential and conscience, our awareness of universal principles, and our own unique purpose.
And the most powerful way to apply this, according to the sources, is to start today with the image of your life's end as your frame of reference.
That funeral visualization exercise, it's classic for this.
Yeah, imagining what key people in your life would say about your character, your contributions, the difference you made.
It's a really powerful exercise in clarifying what truly matters to you. By keeping that ultimate picture in mind, you create a filter for your daily decisions. You start asking, does this activity, this choice, move me closer to the kind of person I want to be and the contribution I want to make?
The sources also make a critical distinction here between leadership and management.
Very important distinction. Leadership is about the top line asking, what are the things I want to accomplish? Am I climbing the right wall? It's about vision, purpose, doing the right things.
And management is the bottom line, asking, how can I best accomplish these things? Am I climbing the ladder efficiently? It's about execution, logistics, doing things right.
And the argument is, you can be a fantastic manager, incredibly efficient, But if the ladder's leaning against the wrong wall,
You're just getting to the wrong place faster.
exactly. Many people are busy managing without ever really leading their own lives.
And they point out we're often living out scripts given to us by others, our parents, our culture, society.
Right, we absorb them.
Uh,
But using our self-awareness, imagination, and conscience gives us the power of re-scripting. We can consciously change those basic paradigms and behaviors that aren't serving us or aren't aligning with our true values.
Anwar Sadat's dramatic shift is mentioned.
Yeah, from a lifetime of enmity towards Israel to seeking peace. That's given as a profound example of this kind of personal leadership and re-scripting. He fundamentally changed how he saw the situation, his paradigm, and acted on it, influencing millions.
So it's about choosing to live out of your imagination, proactively designing your life based on your deepest values, rather than simply living out of your memory, just being a product of past conditioning.
You get to be your own first creator. That's the idea.
And central to that is identifying your life center, where you derive your security, guidance, wisdom, power.
Right. The sources explore common centers people have. Spouse, family, money, work, possessions, pleasure, friend, enemy, church, even self.
And they highlight how relying on any single one of these can be vulnerable and limiting, can't it?
Absolutely. Spouse-centeredness can lead to codependency. Money-centeredness can warp priorities. Self-centeredness is ultimately stagnant, like the Dead Sea they mentioned.
So the effective center is.
Principle-centered. That's presented as the most effective because principles are external and unchanging. They provide stable security. They don't change with circumstances. They offer clear guidance. Your conscience is educated by these universal laws. They give broad wisdom, seeing the bigger picture, and genuine power from aligning with natural laws.
So a principle-centered person tends to see the world in terms of contribution.
Yes, and acts proactively based on those deep values.
That concert date example they use is perfect for showing this in action.
It is.
Having to decide whether to cancel on your spouse for work, it looks totally different depending on your center. A principle-centered person weighs it against their long-term values and mission for their marriage and life, making a choice that contributes to what genuinely matters, regardless of pressure or what others might think.
The point is that meaning, the sources argue, doesn't come from circumstances. That's the circle of concern. It comes from within, from being responsible, able to respond to life's questions.
And they suggest practical ways to live this habit.
Yeah, like using imagination to visualize desired outcomes, your funeral, important anniversaries, maybe challenging conversations going well. Also, writing affirmations, personal, positive, present tense, visual, and emotional, to bridge the gap between your deep values and your daily actions.
Like the parent visualizing a calm, principle-based response to misbehavior instead of just reacting in anger.
Exactly. They mentioned that peak performers, athletes, astronauts are often powerful visualizers. They begin with the end in mind by creating that internal experience, a sort of comfort zone for challenging situations before they even happen.
And finally, identifying your key life roles, parent, spouse, manager, friend, community member, and setting long-term goals for each, align with your overall mission statement.
Right. That gives structure and purpose to your planning. It keeps the end in mind across different areas.
And this extends beyond individuals, too, to families and organizations.
Yes, the sources emphasize that the process of creating a family or organizational mission statement together, involving everyone, that's just as important as the statement itself. It builds the capacity, the PC, to live that mission.
So it becomes the Constitution.
It becomes the Constitution that guides decisions and behavior, provides continuity and unity. Like in that hotel example where everyone, down to the housekeepers, understood and lived the mission statement because they helped create it.
Okay, building on that mental creation of habit 2, habit 3 is put first things first.
Right. This is the physical, or second creation. It's about effective self-management, taking the vision and values from habit 2 and actually organizing your life, your time, your decisions to be congruent with them.
So leadership, habit 2, is doing the right things.
And management, habit 3, is doing those things right. Leadership is the right brain, the vision, the purpose. Management is the left brain, the logic, sequencing, execution. You manage from the left, but you lead from the right.
And effective management is about prioritizing putting the important things first.
And importance, critically, relates to the results that contribute to your mission and goals from habit 2. Urgency, on the other hand, just demands immediate attention, often without regard to importance.
And our natural tendency is to react to the urgent, isn't it? It screams louder.
It does. But important things, which are often not urgent, require proactivity and initiative. If you don't have clarity from habit 2 about what's truly important, you'll constantly be pulled off track by the merely urgent.
This is where that time management matrix comes in. Very insightful.
It really is. Quadrant third is urgent and important crises, deadlines. Quadrant third is urgent but not important interruptions, many emails, reacting to others' priorities. Quadrant fourth is not urgent and not important trivia, time wasters, escape activities.
But quadrant 2?
Quadrant 2, not urgent and important. That's where effectiveness truly lives, according to the sources. This is planning, prevention, relationship building, recognizing new opportunities, recreation, renewal. The high leverage stuff.
And most people get stuck in quadrant 1, perpetually putting out fires.
Or bouncing between third and fourth.
Yeah.
Moving into quadrant 2 requires conscious effort and, crucially, saying no to other things. The sources mention that, quote, the enemy of the best is often the good.
You need a stronger yes, your deep sense of purpose and value from habit 2 braining inside you.
That's what gives you the strength to say no to urgent but unimportant things, or even just good things that distract you from your unique contribution, your most important priorities.
And doing quadrant 2 effectively requires a tool that isn't just about scheduling efficiency.
Right, it needs to be principle-centered. The sources advocate for fourth-generation time management, which is less about minute-by-minute planning and more about organizing your life around your roles and your principles.
Like using a compass, not just a roadmap.
Exactly. A compass for direction rather than just relying on a rigid roadmap. Organizing your week based on quadrant 2 goals for each of your key roles provides that flexible framework grounded in your principles.
And part of putting first things first, especially as you move towards interdependence, often involves delegation. The sources distinguish between 2 very different types.
Gopher delegation and stewardship delegation.
Gopher delegation is, well, exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah, you're telling someone exactly what to do and how to do it, supervising their methods, go for this, go for that, like that camera anecdote. Just push the button when I tell you. It severely limits how much you can leverage your time because you're just micromanaging everything.
Stewardship delegation, on the other hand, focuses on the desired results, not the methods.
Right. It's based on trusting people's inherent capacity, their self-awareness, conscience, imagination, free will to choose the how, to figure it out.
It takes more time up front, doesn't it?
It definitely takes more time up front to set up. The sources acknowledge that. But it's time incredibly well invested because it increases your leverage dramatically. It requires clear, mutual understanding across 5 key areas.
Okay, what are those?
Desired results, what outcome is needed, not how to get it. Guidelines, the boundaries, but keep them minimal. Resources, what support is available. Accountability, how performance will be measured, the standards. And consequences, what happens, good or bad, based on that accountability.
The anecdote about delegating yard cleaning to the son is a beautiful example of this in action.
It really is. The initial resistance, that's part of anyone learning self-management, right? It's hard. But the parents' patience, the clear agreement on the result, a clean yard, and the guidelines, no paint on the garage, providing resources, like helping within the agreement.
It led to the son taking true ownership.
Exactly. The sources say it became his yard. He built his self-management capacity, his responsibility, because he was trusted with the how. That trust is key.
And they connect this to aligning organizational systems, too, like reward systems.
Yes, aligning them with principles.
Yeah.
If your mission values cooperation, but your compensation system rewards cutthroat competition, you're sending totally mixed signals.
You're not walking your talk.
Exactly. That real estate example where they changed the system so managers' pay was tied to their salespeople's success, it instantly fixed the human relations problem because the system aligned with the goal of mutual benefit. It's about walking your talk systemically.
Okay, so moving into the public victories now, the habits of interdependence. Habit 5 is seek first to understand, then to be understood.
This one is powerfully within your circle of influence. You can always choose to do this, regardless of how the other person is acting. It's totally up to you.
The core principle sounds simple, but is incredibly difficult in practice. Diagnose before you prescribe?
So hard. But it applies everywhere. Medicine, you don't prescribe without understanding the patient's condition. Sales don't pitch without understanding the customer's needs. Teaching, design, and crucially, in relationships, judging or evaluating first. The sources argue it just creates a barrier to understanding. You shut the door.
And our default is often these autobiographical responses, right?
Yes, we filter what others say through our own experiences and immediately jump to advising, you should do this, probing, well, why did you? interpreting what you really mean is, or evaluating, that's good, bad, all based on our own map.
The father-son example about school shows how this, even with good intentions, completely shuts down genuine communication.
Totally. Because the son doesn't feel truly heard. He feels judged or managed.
So the alternative is empathic listening.
Empathic listening. It means truly listening with the intent to understand, not just listening so you can formulate your reply. It's trying to get inside the other person's frame of reference, to see the world as they see it, to feel what they feel.
It requires both sides of the brain.
Yeah, the logic of rephrasing the content. So you're saying that, and the empathy of reflecting the feeling. And that sounds really frustrating.
And doing this gives people psychological air, as they call it.
Exactly. When they feel truly heard and understood, the tension just dissipates. They feel safe enough to open up and explore their own thoughts and feelings, often coming to their own solutions. It makes massive deposits in that emotional bank account.
In that father-son story, the moment the father shifted to empathic listening, you're really frustrated about school, everything changed.
Everything. The son felt heard, and then he revealed the real deeper issue. I'm going to flunk. I don't want to quit. He could finally get it out.
So seeking first to understand transforms interactions.
It really does. It turns potentially transactional exchanges into transformational ones, building deep relationships. It physically puts you and the other person on the same side of the table, looking at the problem together rather than facing each other across it.
And while the skill is important, the desire needs to be sincere.
Absolutely. The sources emphasize that. A sincere desire to understand is foundational. Technique without sincerity is quickly seen as manipulative, and it actually builds distrust. Empathic listening takes courage, vulnerability up front, and yes, it takes time. But it saves immense time and pain down the line by preventing misunderstandings and addressing root issues.
That labor negotiation example is powerful, too.
Isn't it? The president choosing to truly listen empathically to the union's concerns, reflecting them back until the union felt deeply understood. It didn't mean he agreed with their solutions, but it completely changed the atmosphere, from hostile to one where synergy became possible.
It's that ancient Greek wisdom, ethos, pathos, logos.
Exactly. Ethos, credibility, trust, and pathos, empathy, feeling must come before logos, logic, reason. You need the foundation of trust and understanding for your logic, your proposal, to land effectively. Otherwise, people aren't really listening.
Which brings us perfectly to habit 6, synergize.
Synergy, the magic one. It means the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. It's about valuing differences, different perspectives, different strengths to create entirely new alternatives and solutions, ones that are better than anything any individual came up with alone.
And it goes back to that paradigm idea again, doesn't it? Life often isn't an either.
No, it's not. Just like seeing the young woman and the old woman in the same picture, two sincere, intelligent people can look at the same situation and see it differently, and both perspectives can be valid, can hold truth. Synergy happens when you value that difference instead of seeing it as opposition or threat. It expands your understanding of reality.
But synergy doesn't just happen automatically. It needs the right conditions.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
The sources are clear. It requires a specific environment built on the other public victories. A high level of trust, that healthy emotional bank account from habit 4, thinking.
Thinking win-win.
Right? Operating with a win-win mindset, seeking mutual benefit. And crucially, seeking first to understand habit 5, so you have a comprehensive picture of everyone's needs and concerns before you start problem solving.
Synergistic communication, they describe, is opening your mind, your heart, and your expression to entirely new possibilities.
It takes courage, though. You have to be willing to step into the unknown, to leave your comfortable position and genuinely seek something new, sometimes confronting uncomfortable truths along the way.
So in problem solving, instead of being on opposite sides arguing positions,
you get on the same side, looking at the problem together and searching for a third alternative that wasn't obvious initially. The examples of the family debating vacation spots or the developer and the bank in that foreclosure situation. They show how applying habits 4, 5, and 6 creates the conditions for synergy to find solutions that meet deeper needs than just winning the argument or splitting the difference.
They also loop back to the PPC balance here, suggesting that P problems, conflicts, breakdowns can be seen as PC opportunities.
Exactly. A relationship conflict, a P problem, isn't just something to be solved or gotten over. It's an opportunity to use habits 4, 5, and 6 to build a deeper connection, a stronger, more complementary relationship team. You're actually increasing PC through the conflict if you handle it synergistically.
Synergy can feel magical, creative.
It often is, leading to outcomes no one could have predicted. But the sources caution that past negative experiences, where attempts at collaboration went wrong, maybe you got burned, that can build defensiveness and cynicism. It makes people afraid to be open, cutting off the possibility of synergy in the future. You have to consciously choose to stay open.
Okay, finally, habit 7, sharpen the saw.
This is the habit that makes all the others possible. It's your personal PC preserving and enhancing your greatest asset, which is you. It's about continuous self-renewal in 4 fundamental dimensions.